بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to another episode of التعبير القرآني, where we are going through the book التعبير القرآني by Dr. Fadil Saleh Samirai, and we're just trying to understand, improve our Arabic studies by looking at the Nahwu, maybe the Sarf a little bit, but mostly the Nahu, and also just trying to understand what Dr. Fadil is saying in his book so that we can benefit from his book as well. Right. So last week we had continued our discussion on chapter 2, where he just introduced this idea of using verbal sentences versus using nominal sentences, using nouns as opposed to verbs, having to denote movement and renewal, regeneration, and all this stuff. And nouns are more used for things that are established, that are settled, uh, type of things. And he had mentioned this ayah that we will continue to discuss today. وَإِن تدعوهم إلى الهدى لا يتبعوكم سواء عليكم أدعوتموه أم أنتم صامتون. So the part that he was looking at was this one that he was discussing. You can see that the two parts of the equation is أدعوتموهم أم أنتم صامتون. So on one hand he uses جملة فعلية, and on the other hand he uses جملة اسمية. So Dr. Fadil was discussing and he mentioned that because da'wah, the process of inviting somebody, is a continuous process, while the natural default status of human beings is silence. Speech is not the default status of human beings. You need a reason for you to speak. Like right now, I'm speaking because I'm informing you, because we are discussing something, because we're sharing ideas. So I have a reason for speaking. Otherwise, I'll just be quiet. So he's saying the default status of silence is a permanent state, if you will. Silence is the permanent established state, while talking is something that is brought to happen, is made to occur. So that's why he's saying that antum samitun is used in the nominal sense, and da'wah is used in the verbal sense, because da'wah is an ongoing process, whereas silence is a permanent established default state of human beings. So that was his point. And then he went, last time we discussed, there was this discussion he was quoting from Al-Kashaf, where Zamakhshari says, he poses a hypothetical question. So جاء في الكشاف في هذه الآية, it has been mentioned in Al-Kashaf regarding this ayah, in قيل, if it was said, هلا قيل, why not say, why not put it this way, أم صمتم, why not say أم صمتم, why say أم أنتم صامتون, ولما وضعت جملة الاسمية موضع الفعلية, why was the جملة اسمية used in the place of the فعلية? We expected أدعوتموهم أم صمتم. That is, it makes sense. It balances the equation very nicely. So now, after raising this hypothetical question, today, inshallah, we're going to start answering this question, and hopefully, if we have time, we'll go to page 29 as well. All right. Now, after that brief introduction, is anybody who wants to participate reading today? Yes, Saima. Please go ahead. So we're starting from قلت.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قلت لأنهم كانوا إذا هزبهم أمر دعوا الله دعوا how can I say
دعوا الله.
دعوا
So
الله
if دعوا. So now if you're joining, you will put a dhamma there.
دعوا الله دون أسنامهم فكانت حالتهم أن يكونوا سماتين أن دعوتهم
أن يكون
sorry. Sami. So this will be plural. Sami
Yes.
Tina.
Yes.
An da'awtihim. Da'watihim. Fakila in da'awtumuhum لم تتفرق لم تتفرق
تفا.
حال sorry
read this.
لم تفترق I have taken لم تفترق
Yes.
لم تفترق حال بين إحداثكم دعائهم وبين ما أنتم عليه من عادة صمتكم عن دعائهم.
صمتكم عن دعائهم. Exactly. Beautiful. All right. So let's read that again. So قلت لأنهم كانوا إذا حزبهم أمر دعوا الله دون أصنامهم فكانت حالتهم أن يكونوا صامتين عن دعوتهم فقيل أو فقيل because now we are pronouncing all the words. So فقيل إن دعوتموهم لم تفترق الحال بين إحداثكم دعائهم وبين ما أنتم عليه من عادة صمتكم عن دعائهم. Okay. So again, remember this is an old book. So the Arabic there is going to be a little bit difficult because you can see a lot of idafas that are just kind of difficult structures to break down, but we'll break it down, inshallah. But I just want to present for you what Al-Kashaf, what Zamakhshari is saying in Al-Kashaf in this particular quote. So he's answering that question. If it was mentioned to me, if I was asked, why not use the verbal form amsamatum? I would say qultu, I would say, or I would have said لأنهم كانوا إذا حزبهم أمر دعوا الله دون أسنامهم. When a matter became too serious for them, when a matter overwhelmed them, when they were faced with a difficulty and they were overwhelmed by that difficulty, immediately their heart told them to call Allah directly without going through their idols. So when a matter became so overwhelming for them, immediately their heart just immediately goes directly to Allah and they call upon Allah, right? Without having to go to, sometimes they're in the desert. And you can imagine if you're stuck in the middle of nowhere, there's no idol in the middle of nowhere. What do? You call upon Allah. And maybe you lost your camel or you lost your provisions, you don't have any food, you're stuck. Who do you call on? You call on Allah. The same way Allah gives examples in the Quran and He says, when you're lost at sea or when you're stuck in the ocean, who do you call? There are no gods in the ocean. You don't have idols in the ocean. You call Allah because there's nobody. Who else do you call? You call upon Allah. So Zamakhshari is saying, when a matter became heavy for them, immediately they called upon Allah without thinking about their idols. فكانت حالتهم أن يكونوا صامتين عن دعوتهم. So, in other words, their state, their continuous state was to be silent on calling or on inviting the idols, right? So before they were faced with a difficulty, they were silent, right? They didn't call upon anything. When they were during ease, they were silent. They didn't go to the idols. And then when they got a reason, when they were faced with a difficulty, what did they do? They called upon Allah. They didn't go to the idols. So فكانت حالتهم أن يكونوا صامتين عن دعوتهم. So in a sense, they were silent when they were in ease, and when they were also silent on the idols when they had a difficulty. So their continuous state was just silence upon the idols. That's what Zamakhshari says. فقيل, so it was said, إن دعوتموهم لم تفترق للحال بين إحداثكم دعائهم وبين ما أنتم عليه من عادة صمتكم عن دعائهم. So it was said, or therefore it was said, whether you call on them, whether you seek their intervention or whatever, لم تفترق الحال, the situation won't be different. The situation won't differ. Literally, it means to separate. But the idea here, you won't have a difference between if you call on them or if you just kept quiet, which was your normal state. There's no difference. Because either way, when it really mattered, who did you call upon? You called upon Allah. You didn't call the idols. When it really mattered, you went directly to Allah. So in a sense, you might as well just be silent, because that's the silent treatment you give these idols. I don't know if that message is clear. what Zamakhshari is saying. Is that part clear? So he's
Yes,
comparing. Okay, great. So he's comparing this part. بين إحداثكم دعائكم. You're bringing forth an invitation to them, or you're bringing forth a calling to the idols, and your constant state of silence from calling upon them. Yeah. So he's comparing those two states and saying it's the same. Whether you're calling upon them or you're not calling upon them, you're still in a state of silence towards them. It's the same. Because when it really matters, you go directly to Allah. All right. So now let's break it down. So now he's answering this question here. So he says قلت, which is الجملة فعلية. أنا قلت. So the fa'il is the inside pronoun أنا. And then whatever follows, it's going to be مقول القول في محل نسب of قلت. And then you enter inside that مقول القول, which is this portion. Yeah. And of course, it's a quote from Al-Kashaf. لأنهم, what is لأن? We know لأن is a sister of أن, even though it is a combination of lam, harf of jar, and أن. So in a sense, this is harf jar, lam, and أن is the isim of or is the isim of la, harf jar. And then أن is isim nasib, it's from the sisters of inna, and then the hum will be the isim of anna. And then together we can say this is our mubtada. All right. So we have a annahum mubtada. Kanu. So again, whatever comes after that mubtada is going to be considered our khabar bucket. So kanu. Then kanu is the kana and its isim, the inside pronoun wow. So that's our mubtada. And then whatever comes after it, again a khabar. Do you see just how Arabic is like brackets inside brackets? So we have several khabars here that are just bracket inside of a bracket, right? And then you have إذا حزبهم أمر دعوا الله دون أسنامهم. What is this? This is a جملة شرطية. So all the way up to here, this will be the khabar of كانوا, right? And inside that khabar of كانوا في محل نسب, you have a جملة شرطية starting with أداة الشرط إذا. So that's our أداة الشرط. حزبهم is our فعل شرط, فعل ماضي في محل جزم, you can say that. And so this is our فعل شرط, and the فاعل is the outside, is an outside فاعل أمر. So this is our فاعل, right? Because حزب is a هو version. هو حزب. When a matter became difficult, when a matter became serious upon them. And this comes together. حزب أمر is like a matter became serious. A matter became overwhelming. It's kind of like a phrase used in that sense. Okay. So you have أمر is the fa'il of حزبهم. And then what is دعوا? دعوا is the jawab of إذا. إذا حزبهم أمر, what happened? If a matter becomes overwhelming to them, or if a matter becomes serious for them, they immediately call Allah. So that's why, because it's ماضي and this is also ماضي, there's no fa الرابطة, there's no fa that normally comes with جواب شرط, because it's similar. So دعوا الله, and دعوا is our فعل, the فاعل is هم, and then Allah ha, دعوا الله, this is our مفعول به, the لفظ الجلالة is our مفعول به. So they called upon Allah. دون, what is دون? دون is a special مضاف, and it's always مبني على الفتح. So it's always going to have a fatha on top. So this is, and together دون أسنامي, that's going to be what is it called, متعلق بدعوا, متعلق بالفعل. That's what I was saying. متعلق بالفعل. And the أسنام is also like no al, so it's a mudaf, and the attached pronoun is a mudaf إليه. So together this is kind of like one bucket. متعلق فعل أو متعلق بدعوا. Alright, and together that whole sentence becomes the khabar of كانوا. Yeah. So far so good. Any questions? Okay. And then there's like one sentence that Zamakhshari mentions in his book here that Dr. Fadil skips. So he goes directly to the next sentence, which is relevant for his conversation here, for his discussion here. So that's why the ellipse is here. There's something missing, which is just Zamakhshari quoting an example. Like there's also another case where there's an ayah وَإِذَا مَسَّ النَّاسَ ضُرٌّ دَعَوُا اللَّهَ. When a person is afflicted by harm. So again, a similar kind of situation when they're faced with a difficulty or when they're touched by harm, when they're afflicted by harm, immediately they go to Allah. All right. So he goes on to say, فَعَاتِفَ, therefore, connecting this part to this kanu, to this kanat. So it's connecting the sentences. كانت حالتهم. حالتهم. This is the فاعل of كانت, of course, and that's why it's كانت, because حالة is feminine. And then you have أن يكونوا صامتين عن دعوتهم is the خبر of كانت, right? And inside that كانت, so this is our اسم كان, and then أن يكونوا, this whole مصدر مؤول would be a خبر of كان في محل نسب. So inside that مصدر مؤول we have أن يكونوا. So يكونوا, again another كان sentence. So أن يكونوا, this will be our مبتدا كان and its اسم. The اسم is the inside pronoun whom, the واو here represented by the واو. So that would be the مبتدا, and صامتين, this is a خبر. It's منصوب بالياء, right? صامتين خبر عن دعوتهم, عن جار مجرور متعلق بالخبر أو بكان, أو sorry بصامتين متعلق عن, so it goes back to صامتين there. All right. Again, let me know if you guys have any other questions. Please feel free. فقيل, you can look at this as beginning of a new sentence. So it was said, or therefore it was said, in doubt. And what was said, so this is our fi'al, and it's mabni lil majhul, qila, we don't know who said it, so it was said. And then whatever comes after it is going to be maqul al-qawl fi mahalli nasab of qila, right? And inside that maqul al-qawl, in da'awtumuhu, so you have in, what kind of a harf is in? In this case, it's adatu shart. If. So now we have a jumla shartiya. So دعوتموهم, this will be our fi'al shart, the part of the condition, right? And of course, دعوتموهم, أنتم دعوتموهم. And we know that this wow, it's an additional wow when you're conjugating, when you're adding a pronoun to the whom version, to the antum version, sorry. Antum, so you don't say antum da'atumhum. Without the wow, it would be impossible to say this word. You will literally bite yourself, or I don't know, do some damage to your mouth. Yeah, so that wow is just there to help you not kill yourself trying to pronounce Arabic words. Okay, so that's our فعل شرط. And then إن دعوتهم لم تفترق الحال. لم تفترق الحال، حال بين إحداثكم دعائهم وبين ما أنتم عليه من عادة صمتكم عن دعاء. This whole part forms the jawab of shart. From beginning of lam all the way to the end forms the jawab of in. If you call on them, what will happen? This whole thing will happen. All right. So we go inside that jawab of shart and we see لم تفترق. Okay. So تفترق, what is that? As مضارع مجزوم. So فعل مضارع مجزوم from افترق يفترق, family 5. And this is لازم. Okay. And that is why this word is the فاعل of افترق يفترق. You know, sometimes we wonder, is it مفعول به افترق الحالة, should I say الحالة? And then you come and realize افترق يفترق is actually لازم. Therefore, it doesn't take a مفعول به. So I cannot say افترق الحالة. Okay, he separated the situation. No, the situation was separated. The situation became separate. That's kind of like what is being said here. So الحال is the فاعل of تفترق. And then بين, what kind of a word is بين? Another special مضاف, again مبني على الفتح. You will never have بين or بيني. It's just, okay, you can have من بيني if it comes with حرف جار من, but it's going to be mostly مبني على الفتح. So بين special مضاف, which means it's متعلق بيفترق, بتفترق. Yeah. So بين, and of course it's a مضاف, and then this is a مضاف إليه, and then this is again a مضاف, and then this is a مضاف إليه. So together they're kind of combined. And then you have إحداث. أحدث يحدث إحداثا is a مصدر. Okay, so you have this مصدر followed by something else after it. Okay, and this is how the masdar goes to work. The masdar worked on, sometimes, you know, we talked about how certain words, certain isms, they can act as verbs. This is a case where an ism, the masdar in particular, is acting like a verb and it's taking on a maf'ul bihi. Now, when it is proper or has a pronoun like this attached to it, then it becomes du'a'i, it becomes like a mudaf ilayh or something. بين إحداثكم دعائهم. Yeah? It's like when it has al on it. If it has al on it, it's going to be, correct me if it doesn't have al on it, sorry, then it becomes mudaf ilayh, right? If it has al on it, then it's going to be mansub, it's going to have fatha on it. Yeah? I hope I'm remembering that correctly. If I'm not, guys, please feel free to, correct me. It's been a while since we discussed this topic of masdars acting as fi'l. Yes, it is acting as a verb.
Yeah, I don't recall having an al or not an al, but if it is an outside idafa construction, it will be mansub.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Either it
pretty
has
much
to
it.
be attached to the masdar as a mudaf ilayh, and if it is not, then it will be mansub.
Yeah.
Because you remember
Yeah.
last time also we discussed if you have the file and you have the maf'ul, so the preference will be given to the file to attach as mudaf ilayh. And here actually this is what is happening. So the kum is attaching with the masdar being a file. So the maf'ul is left alone as mansub.
So this would be du'a'ahum will be mansub.
Yeah, it should be fatha. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Yes,
I wasn't sure here, to be
I also
honest.
thought.
Oh, you also thought it like this? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Then yeah, then that's probably it. Because yeah, it's been a while since I did this, and yeah, it normally just confuses me. Yeah, so obviously now that we figured that out, so this is going to be a masdar acting as a verb, and then du'a would be the maf'ul bihi of ihdath, right? And of course it's also mudaf ilayh, du'a'ahum, so another idafa there. Yes, your implementation of calling upon them, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So baina this wa baina that, between this and this. So this baina and this baina are connected, right? By harf atuf, wow. And then of course, bainama, this ma, ism mawsul, is the mudaf ilayh of baina. Okay, and together they're kind of connected like that. So and then ism mawsul here, you enter into that ism mawsul and it's sila. Then you have antum, which is in the sila now. We're entering into the sila. Antum is going to be a mubtada. Alayhi, this is going to be jar majroor متعلق بالخبر. ما أنتم عليه من عادة صمتكم. So من اسم مجرور عادة من حرف جر عادة اسم مجرور Samti, mudaf ilay, and then it's also a mudaf, and then this is another mudaf ilay. So you have a chain idafa here happening, which is also one bucket. So this muta'alliq bil khabar 1, this is muta'alliq bil khabar 2, and then صمتكم عن, so you have عن دعائهم, again another jar majroor متعلق ب صمتكم. So this عن goes to صمتكم. So in a sense, this bracket actually just doesn't end there. So your silence of calling upon them, which is like a weird structure, but that's kind of like what is being said. So here you had دعاءهم, إحداثكم دعاءهم. Here you have صمتكم عن دعائهم. All right. Any questions?
Can you translate this sentence? Why
Okay.
does he write so difficultly?
Yeah, old Arabic. So I'm gonna write here. I'm gonna type it here, the very like literal translation, and then we can restructure it
Okay.
and yani make it better. All right. So we have, if in da'awtumuhum, if you called on them or upon them, it wouldn't separate. Okay, no, it wouldn't. The state wouldn't separate. I'm doing it very literally. The state wouldn't separate between your do I want to go very literal here, or maybe we can change it a bit? Let's use what Arshib suggested, your implementation, instead of just saying you're bringing about. It's going to be weird. Your implementation. Implementation of their of calling upon them. And so between your implementation of calling upon them and what you're upon of عادة صمتكم, of your oh, this is so weird, of your habit of silence from calling upon them. I know, I get it. It's just weird, right? But he's saying if you called on them, comma, the state wouldn't separate between your implementation of calling upon them and what you're upon of your habit of silence from calling upon them. In other words, you already have a habit of being silent upon them when it matters the most, right? That's your habit. So now that you're calling them when it doesn't really make a difference, there's no point. Now, if you call them now when you're not, when you don't have any major crisis in your life, it doesn't make a difference from just when you don't call on them. So now let's fix this a little bit with some better English. If you called on them, the state wouldn't be different between your implementation of calling upon them, or maybe even we can even remove implementation just to make the language easier, between you calling them, right? Make it easier. And you and your constant state of silence upon them, maybe even. If you called on them, the state wouldn't be different between you calling them and your constant state of silence upon them. Like you already have a constant state of silence towards them. When it really matters the most, you don't call on them. So there's that like constant state or default state of silence towards them. So now that you're calling on them, it doesn't really make a difference. Is that a little bit clear?
The he in alayhi is referring to what?
It refers to your state. Ma antum alayhi, what you're upon, the state now. So the hal, the state wouldn't change from this to this, right? And this is being represented by your current state or your continuous state of silence. Ma antum alayhi, what you're upon it now. In other words, or what you're constantly upon. So sometimes you have pronouns that really don't go back to anything. It's
Isn't
just,
it going back to ma? Isn't it going back to ma?
yes, it's going back to ma. This one is going back to ma, like the state, ma antum alayhi. So you're comparing this state of calling them and the state of not calling them, right? Yeah, so this one goes back to ma, but sometimes, go on.
It's basically ayat, right? So we can leave it in translation.
Yeah, it's a aid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but I was just making an observation that sometimes you have a pronoun that doesn't go back to anything. So yeah, that can also happen. Like it's not a must that aid or a pronoun goes back to something.
And going back to the ayah, what I thought that it's talking about like Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam calling them. And in this passage, it's like those ideal worshippers calling their idols.
Yeah. Yeah, it just took a different, I also don't understand. I mean, that was a bit confusing for me as well, because I didn't understand what was happening. Like,
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Am I audible?
Yes. Can everybody hear me? Or hear Saima?
Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah, we can hear you, Sister Madam. We can hear both of you. I think she cannot hear you.
Okay, so probably something wrong with her audio.
Am I audible?
No, we can hear you, Saima, but I think you can't hear us. Let me somebody type it in the chat. Let me type it real quick. Okay. So as Saima is fixing that, yeah, that's a good observation, and I also noticed it, and I was confused by what is happening. But I think they're not trying to explain the ayah. They're trying to explain the idea that the verb was used and the noun was used, not necessarily okay. Yeah, we were thinking the same thing, Shamia. Yeah. All right. Yeah, so I think the discussion is not really about explaining what the Prophet ﷺ is being told. And you can actually say, you see, it is سواء عليكم أدعوتموهم. Again, it's antum. So the question is, if it's talking about the Prophet ﷺ, why is it antum, right? So there's more obviously to discover about this ayah, but I don't think that Dr. Fadil is really focusing on the explanation of the ayah, but rather just the fact that da'wah, invitation, is used in a verbal sense and silence is used in a nominal sense. And how can we explain these two differences? We can explain these two differences in a way that da'wah is more of a continuous thing, And silence is more of a permanent default state of humans, just like the Quraysh, they were silent, their continuous state was silence towards their idols until they were presented with a situation of speaking, or until they were presented with this situation of calling upon them, that they called upon them. But their continuous situation, their day-to-day lives, it wasn't like continuously calling upon their idols. No, they only did it at some point in their lives, right? When that moment appeared for them or became apparent to them. And I think that's the kind of comparison they're trying to make here, just to explain that comparison between silence being used as a noun and da'wah, calling, being used as a verb. And I think that's the purpose. Saima, can you be able to hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear, but I didn't heard the starting part what you said. Like my
Okay,
question
maybe.
was, this is like Tulana, how to whom? Or maybe I'll watch the recording and take time.
No
So,
problem. You can just ask and then
then
we'll see. I can summarize real quickly.
so this thing, the last part, the out tumu whom. So
Right,
tumu, that's also plural, right? That
right.
Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and believers, and this whom is going to the mushrikuns. Antum samitun, or the believers and the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam remain silent.
Silent.
I was thinking,
Yes. Yeah,
is
that
that
is the
correct?
correct understanding of the ayah. That is the correct understanding of the ayah. But I was just explaining that I don't think Dr. Fadil is explaining the meaning of the ayah. He's not doing a tafsir of the ayah. Remember, what he does is that he's comparing verbal sentences and nominal sentences. That's his interest. Yeah, he just wants to uncover why da'wah is used in a verbal sense and why silence is used in a nominal sense. That's his point. So now he's bringing an example here, or he's quoting Az-Zamakhshari, who is also bringing an example about the Quraysh, who are normally silent. Their default state is silence. So the continuous default established state towards the idols is silence. And then when a matter became heavy for them, what did they do? They called on Allah. They didn't even call their idols. So their state was a continuous state of silence, even towards the idols, right? So he's just comparing that idea that silence is a permanent established state for human beings, whereas calling is more of a continuous thing. It's more of it requires like a verbal. And I think I really also don't understand, like this last point, I think it's just to prove the idea that silence is an established state, whereas talking breaks that pattern and requires a reason to speak. Because remember, in the previous paragraph, he was talking about silence, and he says, فَالْكَلَامُ طَارِئ. Speech is incidental. You need a reason to bring about speech. Otherwise, the default status is silence. We are all silent until and unless we have a reason to speak. So this whole discussion that he quotes here, I think it's just to support that argument that the default status of the human being is silence unless he's presented with a reason, and then he speaks. So this part is not necessarily explaining the ayah, I think, unless I'm completely not understanding. And maybe I will go back and read Al-Kashaf to see if that's what exactly he's saying. That is, he explaining the idea of silence versus calling, and not necessarily explaining the ayah or the meaning of the ayah. Clear?
Okay.
Yeah, I don't get it either. I don't get it either, especially the last sentence, you're talking about the state you are and the state of your silence on their invitation. What is that?
Yeah.
Okay,
I also don't know. I
let's
can't claim to be knowing, honestly.
just leave it. Let's leave it.
Yeah.
Let's go forward.
Yeah.
We got the idea. Okay, what he's talking about.
Yeah, for as long as we understood what Dr. Fadil is trying to say in regards to silence and calling. And I think that's the main idea. When we are ready to read Al-Kashaf in future, then we will come and read that. Inshallah.
Wallahu alam.
Inshallah, you never know. You never know. So maybe we can just do up to here, and then tomorrow we'll pick up from there. We can just read this. Saima, you wanna continue?
Yes, inshallah. ومن ذلك قوله تعالى أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ذلك أن لم يكن ربك مهلك القرى بظلم أو أهلها غافلون سورة أنعام.
Mhm.
وقوله وما كان ربك ليهلك القرى بظلم وأهلها مصلحون سورة هود.
Exactly. So now, again, whenever you see Dr. Fadil using this word وَمِن ذَلِكَ, and from that is the example of Allah exalted be He. When you see this, He's giving another example. So he has moved on from this discussion. I think he realized that our brain juices were exhausted here, so he moved on. He decided, let me give you another better example. Let's move on from this discussion, right? So he moved on from that example of أَدَعَوْتُمُوهُمْ أَمْ أَنْتُمْ صَامِتُونَ, and now he's giving us two different ayat, and he's comparing those two ayat, and he's saying, you know, yeah. So he's saying the one ayah in Al-An'am and the next one in Hud, and the part that you can clearly see that he's comparing is مُهْلِكَ الْقُرَى لِيُهْلِكَ الْقُرَى, right? And of course you can see that the rest is more or less similar. So ذلك أن لم يكن ربك مهلك القرى بظلم وأهلها غافلون, right? And that is because your Lord will not be a destroyer of a town or a village wrongfully, وأهلها غافلون, and the people and its people are unawares, right? Or were not informed, or the messengers did not come to them. And he goes on to explain what غافلون means. And then he compares that with the ayah in Hud, وَمَا كَانَ رَبُّكَ لِيُهْلِكَ الْقُرَى بِظُلْمٍ وَأَهْلُهَا مُصْلِحُونَ. And your Lord is never one to destroy a town wrongfully or unjustly or with dhulm, and or while its people are righteous. While its people are righteous. Yeah, he is more focused on verb and isim usage. He's not really looking to explain to you the ayah, or that's not his thing. His thing is to just make you understand how grammar and how these grammatical concepts and maybe even balagha concepts are at play in the Quran, and how they bring on a different meaning. It's up to you now to draw on the meaning. For him, he's just pointing out this and this, this and this, and then you can draw the conclusions yourself from what he's trying to say. So now he's comparing, why did Allah say here muhlik al-qura, and why did he say here liyuhlik al-qura? Why use a noun here and why use a verb there? So that is the next discussion that he enters to in this whole discussion that we started in chapter 2 of verbs and nouns, right? And inshallah tomorrow, because this is a really long paragraph, I don't think we want to get into it because we're already almost at time.
Can we at least do the first two lines where he's explaining why this is happening? Because I think he's
Okay,
switching the subject, right?
okay. Yeah, we can do maybe up until the ayah here. Let's see if we can reach here. I don't know. Let's see.
Does anybody else want to do?
I can read.
Okay. All right, Arshi.
فقد جاء في الآية الأولى بالصيغة الاسمية مهلكا، وفي الثانية بالصيغة الفعلية ليهلك، وذلك أن الآية الأولى في سياق مشهد من مشاهد يوم القيامة، عما كان في الدنيا. قال تعالى:
Mm-hmm.
is it Should
Okay.
I read the ayah?
No, we'll stop with the ayah because the ayah is really long. He's quoting the entire context in that. So
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
let's just stop there, I think. All right. So he goes on to say فقد جاء في الآية الأولى بالصيغة الإسمية مهلك وفي الثانية بالصيغة الفعلية ليهلك وذلك أن الآية الأولى في سياق مشهد من مشاهد يوم القيامة عما كان في الدنيا قال تعالى, and then he goes on to quote his evidence, right? Okay. So what is he saying? So he's given two ayahs that he wants to compare, and he says that like you can see, like we mentioned, the first ayah he brought it, or he mentioned it in a nominal way, in a noun, and in the second one he mentioned it in a verbal form, liyuhlik. And that is because the first ayah where he mentions the noun, it's in the context of one of the sceneries, or it's depicting a scene from the scenes of Judgment Day, right? Yeah, so it's depicting a scene of Judgment Day, and that is why he's saying that the verb is used. All right, and it's depicting about what happened in the worldly life. Okay, so there's something, it's a depiction of Judgment Day about events that happened before, about events that happened in the dunya. And if you read the ayah, you would actually understand وَيَوْمَ يَحْشُرُهُمْ جَمِيعًا. So it starts with وَقَالَ مِنَ الْإِنسِ رَبَّنَا اسْتَمْتَعَ بَعْضُنَا بِبَعْضٍ. So this part here is they're recollecting something that happened in the dunya. So they're discussing, it's a scene in the future about a people who are discussing something that they did in the dunya. So that is what Dr. Fadil is saying. Yeah. And because of that, it's almost as if it is done, right? It is set in stone. So that's why it is as if it is established, and that is why the noun is used. Okay, is the meaning clear?
And I can also see this contrasting thing in both the ayahs, that muhliku noun with ghafilun and yuhliku verb with muslihun. Like righteous people ke liye verb. He is not going to destroy them. And for ghafilun, it is, I don't know, something, it was striking me.
I don't know if he goes, I think he goes into the explanation of Ghafilun. I'm not so sure. I haven't read ahead, to be honest, guys.
Like those
So-
are ghafilun, they are going to get punishment. Like ism he has used, muhlik, destroyer of the ghafilun. Because ghafilun, muslihun, both are ism, both permanent sifas.
Yeah.
But for ghafilun, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala use a strong term, like ism is more strong, more permanent. Whereas in case of solihun, where the destruction has come, so it is like verb, not permanent, something. I don't know whether I'm just putting arrows.
Maybe, I don't know. He doesn't go into that discussion. He doesn't really go into that discussion. But again, muslihun is also a noun. Maybe. I honestly, I cannot speak to that because he doesn't mention it, and I am not so sure. But what I get that he's saying is that he's saying because this is a statement uttered in the future about the past. And the past is already done, isn't it? Like the past is already established. So when they're making this statement in the future, the past is already done. So muhlik is used in that sense because the past is already established. They're speaking about a matter that has already been done, determined, right? And then this one is not discussing a scene in the future. So it's in its own context, and that's why liyuhlika is used. That is according to Dr. Fadil's explanation of what is happening in this between these two comparisons. All right, maybe we can take like 5 more minutes just to go through the i'rab of this, so that tomorrow we can just go quickly through the ayah and finish off this this page, whatever is remaining in the page, if that's okay with everybody. I don't know. I know some people have to go pray Maghrib.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
But
okay.
now, to understand these comparisons, we'll have to just look into the ayahs, what is coming before and what is coming after. It is not very easy
Exactly.
to understand this way.
Yeah, and I noticed especially in this chapter, Dr. Fadil is not spelling it out for you. He is just like, he gives examples, says a few sentences, and then moves on to the next example. So you have to like
Yeah.
really think
No.
about what he's saying and maybe go read the tafsir. And again, I think also he's not writing for like me and you, obviously. He's writing for like scholars or people of knowledge, or people who are doing research and they understand this ayat, or the people of the Quran who, they've already done research on the Quran. So when he mentions something, he mentions it briefly. Maybe somebody who has more information about it understands it. But us, we have to go to the tafsir and read, what does this ayah mean? And maybe
Yeah.
perhaps that is why it's difficult for us. Yeah.
So we should be really careful in drawing conclusions unless and until we know what is going around.
100%. 100%. Yeah, we should understand the ayah, know the tafsir of the ayah, because again, he's not giving tafsir. He's just giving comparisons to prove his point. So yeah, it is important for us to know the tafsir of the ayah, the context of the ayah, and then we can understand what he's saying. Like, for example, he doesn't give the context of this second ayah. He only gives the context of the first ayah. So for us to actually understand why liyuhlika is mentioned as liyuhlika, perhaps we can go to this ayah and see the context. Is the context talking about Day of Judgment or not? And then maybe we can understand better. Okay, so let's maybe quickly go through the i'rab. I don't think it's going to be difficult, but let's see. So فقد, we've done فقد and قد so many times. جاء فعل ماضي في الآية الأولى. الآية الأولى, this is موصوف صفة, and of course في حرف جار. الآية اسم مجرور, and so this is one bucket there, متعلق بالفعل أو بجاء. بالصيغة الاسمية جاء comes with باء, so that باء is married to جاء, goes back to جاء. So this is again another bucket here, which is our متعلق بالفعل number 2. So بالصيغة الاسمية, again موصوف صفة, and then this مهلكة is kind of like further information, like what is it, what is this ism بصيغة الاسمية, what is it? Yeah, so it could be what is it called, عطف بيان, بصيغة الاسمية, right? I think, right? Am I right, guys? I hope. Sometimes I confuse.
Take it as badal also. Be muhallik.
Yeah, you can take it as بدل. بدل maybe اشتمال. بدل الاشتمال.
في صيغة الاسمية.
Or maybe not really بدل الاشتمال. I think just عطف بيان works best here.
Okay.
Yeah, because with بدل, the idea about بدل, especially بدل الكل, you can be able to replace the بدل with the مبدل من. You can take the بدل and put it. Oh yeah, actually, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you can say بمهلك. You're right.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, it could be بدل. Could be بدل or عطف بيان. Yes. Right. Okay. And then of course,
just on the side note, if you have the time, you can answer or just skip it up. For badal, we know that we'll take the same Arab. What about ataf bayan? What will be the Arab on this?
Yeah, same. Because it's
same?
still
Okay.
So sometimes عطف بيان is not just one word. Sometimes it can be like more. So in that sense, sometimes it doesn't really follow the badal rules and whatnot. But the rule is anything that is a badal can be عطف بيان, but not everything that is عطف بيان is a badal. That's the rule.
Okay. Jazakallah khair.
So جاء في وفي. So you can clearly see that this well is going back to this fi. All right. And so في الثانية, so this is again another متعلق that is connected to the first متعلق there. So وفي الثانية متعلق بالفعل بالصيغة الفعلية. So again this is kind of like whole connected. So this وفي this في الآية الأولى وفي الآية الثانية جاء بالصيغة الفعلية. So this باء again going back to جاء in that sense. So again this is another متعلق بالفعل. So a lot of متعلقs as we normally see in Arabic text. Yeah. And then wow, we can say this is wow استئنافية, beginning a new sentence. ذلك مبتدا, and then whatever comes after it's going to be a خبر, and then inside that خبر we have أن الآية مبتدا, الأولى موصوف صفة, right, في سياق مشهد. So في حرف جار, سياقي اسم مجرور, مشهد مضاف إليه, right, and then مشهد من. So this من حرف جار, this one goes back to مشهد. So مشهد من مشاهد, yeah, من مشاهد يوم القيامة. So مضاف مضاف إليه مضاف إليه. So this is whole one bucket, like one continuous chain like that. And this is going to be a متعلق بالخبر, right? So مبتدا متعلق بالخبر. And then you have عما كان في الدنيا. I think actually this is another متعلق connected to مشهد. مشهد عما كان في الدنيا. So this عما goes also back to مشهد. So you have this من going back to مشهد, and also this عما going back to مشهد, and this makes it a متعلق بالمشهد, this one, right? So this one goes back to that one, this one goes back to that one, في الدنيا, and that will be the end of that sentence. And then he goes on to give proof to what he's saying with another sentence. قال تعالى, Allah exalted به says. Is that clear?
Alhamdulillah.
All right. Okay, great. Thank you guys for being here and for correcting me and for not allowing me to make mistakes. Alhamdulillah, that's a very good thing. So that we can benefit more people. So I'm not the only one benefiting. Also, you guys, when you correct me, we give the right information to whoever is going to watch this video in future, and we are getting the ajr together. May Allah accept. And وإياكم جزاكم الله خيرا. I will see you guys tomorrow and we can finish this page inshallah. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام. May Allah keep you rahmah, afiyah, naima, always, always, always. Ameen.
آمين يا رب العالمين.
I have one question. It's not related to this, and you can answer it in the group.
Okay.
Can I ask?
Sure. Do you want me to stop the recording or do you want me to continue
Yes,
this
yes.
recording?
You can stop the recording.